Welcome to the Hindu Daily. Okay, let's dive right into our first piece. It's about India's strategic autonomy. It's a phrase we hear a lot, but it feels like it's really front and center in foreign policy now, in this, pretty complex world.
It absolutely is. It's become the cornerstone, really.
So what exactly are we talking about? What is strategic autonomy for a country like India?
Well, at its heart, it's about sovereignty, the ability to make your own decisions.
On foreign policy, defense,
Yeah.
that sort of thing?
Precisely, without being, let's say, overly constrained by outside pressures or what your allies might want you to do.
Right, so it's not isolationism, not just cutting yourself off.
No, definitely not. And it's not pure neutrality either, like the old non-aligned movement sometimes felt. It's more about flexibility, independence, being able to engage with, well, multiple powers.
But on India's own terms.
That's the key. On its own terms, it has historical roots pushing back against colonial influence, then there is non-alignment in the Cold War.
And now, how has it changed? The Modi government talks about multi-alignment.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's maybe more pragmatic now, more active engagement with different groups, different countries, still focused on preserving that freedom to act.
Okay, so how does India actually do that? Given the global situation, it feels messy out there.
It is messy. The article makes a good point that unipolar moment with the U.S. on top, that's faded. Now you've got this fragmented world. China's much more assertive. Russia's pushing boundaries. The West has its own issues.
So India's walking a tightrope.
A very delicate path, yes. The piece calls it a balancing act, sometimes precarious, often imperfect. But the goal is always safeguarding core interests. Things like territorial integrity, economic growth, getting the technology it needs.
Okay, let's make this concrete. How does this play out with, say, the United States?
Yeah.
That relationship seems much closer now.
Oh, dramatically closer, especially on defense, intelligence sharing.
Joint exercises, tech transfers.
Oh.
We see the Quad, ITU-2, IMS.
All of that. But it's not always smooth sailing. There's friction, too.
Well,
the article mentions things like the Trump administration's trade policies, the tariffs, sanctions, and Washington definitely putting pressure on India about its dealings with Russia, particularly energy and defense.
So how does India handle that? Pushback?
The response is described as measured. Keep talking, keep engaging with the U.S., but
stick to your guns on what's important for India.
Exactly. Insist on the primacy of national interest. It's not anti-American, the article stresses. It's just not letting U.S. priorities completely dictate India's choices. That's strategic autonomy right there.
Okay. Now, China. That seems like a whole different level of challenge.
Absolutely. More complex, definitely more challenging. Those border clashes in 2020, they really changed things.
Shattered illusions, as the article says. Tensions are still high.
Very high. But here's the complexity. Despite that, China is still a massive trading partner.
Right. And they're both in groups like BRICS, the SKO.
So India's approach. It's described as cautious engagement and firm deterrence, meaning build up border infrastructure, strengthen ties with partners in the Indo-Pacific, show strength, but also keep lines of communication open, participate in those regional forums, basically resist confrontation and resist giving in.
Finding that middle ground.
Trying to. It's about protecting your interests without just becoming, a pawn in someone else's game against China.
And there's Russia. A very old relationship.
Very old. Deep roots from the Cold War. Lots of defense cooperation historically.
But Russia's much closer to China now.
Yeah.
And pretty isolated globally because of Ukraine. How does India manage that?
Well, India has pretty much maintained its ties. Still buying Russian oil, weapons, keeping diplomatic channels open.
Which has drawn criticism from the West.
A fair bit, yes. But India's held firm, refused to pick a side in what some frame as, a simple good versus evil contest. The article frames it as India crafting its own foreign policy based on its own unique situation, its geography, its history, its goals, not just reacting to others.
This really paints a picture of India trying to carve its own path. How does this connect to that idea of India being the voice of the global South? PM Modi mentioned that during the G20 presidency.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Positioning India as non-West but not anti-West, It's strategic. Trying to bridge divides, offer a different perspective, particularly for developing nations.
But that must be tricky too, managing expectations.
Definitely. And it means strategic autonomy has to keep evolving. It can't mean isolation in today's world. Everything's too connected. Tech ecosystems, climate change. So it has to be about resilience, adaptability.
And surely a lot depends on internal strength.
Oh, absolutely. Economic muscle, tech capabilities, political stability. Those are crucial for making independent decisions stick. And we're even seeing autonomy extend into new areas like data sovereignty, securing supply chains.
So the bottom line here.
The article concludes it's not just a slogan, it is a strategy about standing straight and standing tall in the shifting world order.
So for you listening, the takeaway is that India's foreign policy moves aren't random. They're part of this calculated effort to navigate a complex world and maximize its own interests. Okay, let's shift gears from global strategy to the domestic economy. Because, as you just said, internal strength is key. Our next deep dive looks at what's being called GST 2.0. Big changes to the goods and services tax, announced recently, September 3rd, 2025. And the idea isn't just tweaking things, it's about unlocking India's growth for the next decade.
That's the ambition, yes. A significant overhaul.
And for people at home, there's some immediate good news, right? Lower taxes on essentials.
Yes. Things like soap, toothpaste, hair oil, basic kitchenware, packaged foods. They're moving into lower tax brackets.
Which should mean lower prices, boost demand.
That's the plan. Help household budgets and hopefully stimulate those sectors, which employ a lot of people.
What about housing? That's always a big one.
Reduce GST on cement and construction materials. That should make homes a bit more affordable, support the Housing for All initiative, and help related industries too.
And critically, life-saving drugs.
Moved to nil or 5% GST, that's a huge deal for cutting treatment costs and improving access to healthcare.
So definite benefits for consumers.
Yeah.
But what about the broader economy, businesses?
Well, this is really aimed at empowering the economic engines. Think about labor-intensive sectors, textiles, handicrafts, leather, footwear, toys. Lower tax rates help protect their margins, hopefully leading to more jobs, especially outside the big cities.
And cars.
Small cars, motorcycles, buses, trucks, they should become more affordable too, helping the auto sector.
But connecting this to the bigger picture, you mentioned exporters and MSMEs, the small and medium businesses.
Yes, this is potentially a very big step for them. The rate rationalization is key. It fixes problems like those inverted duty structures.
Yes, where the tax on raw materials was higher than the tax on the finished product.
Exactly, which made no sense and really hurt competitiveness, especially for exporters. This makes Indian products more competitive globally, supporting Make in India.
And it reduces litigation. That was a huge headache with the original GST, wasn't it?
A massive one. Simplifying the tax slabs, harmonizing rates, it reduces ambiguity, less room for disputes. That's a big relief, especially for service exporters, too.
And there's something about easier registration for small businesses.
Yes, this sounds quite path-breaking. A simplified GST registration scheme, automated approvals within 3 days for small, low-risk businesses.
3 days, that's fast.
Very fast. It dramatically lowers the barrier to entry, cuts compliance costs, encourages more businesses to become formal, part of the official economy. That's vital for MSMEs.
And there's also a new tribunal for disputes.
The GSTAC Goods and Services Tax Appellate Tribunal should mean faster, fairer resolutions when disagreements do happen.
So pulling it all together for our listeners, what's the strategic significance of GST 2.0?
Well, a streamlined structure, basically 2 main rates, 18% standard and 5% merit, plus a special higher rate for a few items. It brings India closer to global norms.
Signals stability to investors, ease of doing business.
Precisely. It sends a strong message. So yeah, it's more than just tax cuts. It's about boosting consumption, yes, but also empowering MSMEs, making India more competitive, and really setting the stage for the next phase of growth.
It sounds like a foundational reform.
The aim is certainly for it to be foundational, fixing the plumbing of the tax system to let the economy flow better.
Okay, so we've looked at India navigating the world stage and strengthening its domestic economy. But external shocks can still hit hard. And that brings us to our third piece today. And this one is, well, it's pretty concerning.
Yes, this is about the U.S. tariffs.
Exactly. Since August 27th, the U.S. has slapped a 50% tariff on Indian goods. This is hitting thousands of small and medium businesses hard. Textiles, garments, jewelry. We're going to look at the immediate impact, especially in places like Tirupur and Karur and Tamil Nadu, the big apparel hubs.
It's a sudden and very sharp shock.
Let's start with a personal story, Vinaja. A 20-year-old tailor in Tirupur, earning 480s a day. She's worried. And at the factory where she works, RK Cottons, things have already slowed down dramatically. Work and workers both reduced.
It really brings the human cost into focus immediately, and the scale of the disruption at a company like RK Cottons is stark. The managing director, R. Rajkumar, says the factory was buzzing a year ago. Now, silent.
How bad is it?
The numbers are grim. Only 100 out of 480 sewing machines running, 1 out of 5 fabric spreaders. Their workforce was 2,000, now it's halved. 2 of their 5 plants are shut.
Wow.
And crucially, he says they have 65 crore worth of stock just piled up, unsold, and haven't been paid for shipments sent in the last 2 months.
That's unsustainable.
He says 80% of his business is the U.S. He thinks he can only manage for maybe another 2 weeks before potentially shutting down completely.
Just 2 weeks. And this isn't a small player. They supply major U.S. retailers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, India exports around $11 billion in textiles and apparel to the U.S. annually. Tamil Nadu alone accounts for nearly $4 billion. So a hit like this,
That ripples right through.
the entire ecosystem feels it.
And this 50% tariff, how did it get so high?
The article explains it's effectively 2 tariffs combined. There was an existing 25% import tariff, and then a punitive 25% was added, linked to India's purchases of Russian oil.
So it doubled almost overnight.
Making it incredibly difficult. R. Gopalakrishnan from Royal Classic Mills, he just stopped work the day it hit 50%.
Stopped completely.
Yes. He said when it was 25%, buyers were talking about maybe sharing the cost. But at 50%, a buyer he'd worked with for 20 years basically said, look, I'll pay for the fabric you've made, but ship it somewhere else, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, for them to make the garments.
They just won't take finished goods from India at that price.
Too expensive with the tariff, they can't sell it in the U.S.
The president of the Tariffs Exporters Association, K.M. Subramanian, he put some numbers on this.
Yeah, he estimates Tariffs ships 12,000 to 15,000 crore worth of garments to the U.S. yearly.
And he fears losing.
Potentially 3,000 to 5,000 crore of that annual business, especially for basic items, core products that buyers can easily get made elsewhere.
And the profit margins are already thin, right?
Razor thin, around 5% on average. The article notes if they'd try to sell the piled up stock domestically, they'd only get about 20% of its value.
That's ruinous.
It really is.
What about businesses that recently expanded, betting on growth?
That makes it even tougher. There's an example, Siva Subramaniam of Raft Garments. He expanded, thinking tariffs wouldn't hit India so hard. Oh, now. Customers are demanding big discounts, like 16%, or only offering to cover a fraction of the tariff, maybe 10%, or just putting orders on hold.
And he employs hundreds of people.
350 workers. And with Deepavali coming up, workers expect bonuses. He's worried about losing orders for the next 6 months.
And it's not just the big factories, is it? It's the whole supply chain.
Exactly. Thousands of MSMEs support the exporters. Yarn suppliers, processors, embroidery units. M. Thirupathy runs an embroidery subcontracting unit. His workload is down by half. He says even if a portion of the export order is lost, the entire supply chain struggles. Job losses follow. He mentions a dyeing unit nearby already shut, sent 50 workers home.
How many people work in this sector in Tiru?
The estimate is about 2 lakh directly employed, another 2 lakh indirectly. Workers from all over India, 19 different states.
So the impact is widespread.
Yeah.
And it's similar in Karur, the other hub.
Just as grim, yes. Karur focuses more on home textiles, kitchen, bed, bath linens for the U.S. A factory manager there, Azim, reports no overtime, a 2 crore of finished goods stuck. Buyers wanting huge discounts or threatening to move orders elsewhere.
And the workers.
They fear wage cuts. An interesting, sad point the article makes, absenteeism has actually gone down.
Why?
Because workers are scared of losing their jobs if they take any time off. Factory manager Gopinath points that out. People are clinging to their work.
And major buyers are pulling back.
Walmart stopped buying. Target cut orders significantly. It's a major downturn.
So, faced with this crisis, what are businesses trying to do? Are there any solutions?
They're exploring options, but immediate fixes are hard to find. P. Gopalakrishnan in Karur mentioned they might have to reduce working days or hours, like during the pandemic.
Back production.
Yes. They're also looking at diversifying maybe into technical textiles, which are more specialized, or trying e-commerce. Some buyers have even suggested partnering with firms in Africa or Sri Lanka, finish the garments there to avoid the U.S. tariff on Indian goods.
But those are long-term plays.
Exactly. Not going to solve the problem of piled-up stock and canceled orders now.
So what are they asking for? What immediate help is needed?
Well, Raja Shanmugam, another exporter, put it bluntly. If the government could announce a support package to cover, say, 25% of the tariff burden, then exporters could negotiate with buyers, maybe salvage the summer orders. Without that, he says businesses will be in deep trouble.
Are they asking for specific schemes?
Yes, N. Thirakumaran from the Tirupur Association mentioned reviving the focus market scheme that used to give export incentives. They're also asking for a one-year moratorium on loan repayments, just to get some breathing room.
Have they spoken to the government?
Yes, there have been protests. Associations met the union finance minister. They've received assurances of support, but details aren't clear yet. They're also, naturally, very keen for talks between India and the U.S. to continue, hoping to resolve the tariff issue itself. And long term, an India-EU free trade agreement is seen as critical for diversification.
And just to add another layer of pressure, it's not only the U.S. market.
No. Sources mentioned in the article indicate the European market has slowed down too, and European buyers are starting to ask for lower prices, apparently knowing that Indian exporters are in a tough spot because of the U.S. tariffs.
So they're squeezed from multiple sides.
It seems so. This whole situation really highlights how vulnerable even major industries can be to sudden policy shifts in global trade.
It really does. For you listening, this isn't just an economic story. It's about the immediate, very real human consequences when global trade gets disrupted. It shows the fragility, doesn't it? How interconnected things are and how quickly livelihoods can unravel. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day